One of the concepts that I think is kind of at the core of my sort of methodology is this idea that you are responsible for your intention, not your reception. And so instead of trying to control how everyone else feels about you, which is impossible and a rat race, and there's no way that we can please absolutely every person, to be really connected and conscientious of your own intention.
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to Distraction. We have an extremely interesting guest today. She specializes in joy, and her name is Amy Smith, and her website is thejoyjunkie.com, thejoyjunkie.com, and she's the author, I love this title, Stand Up for Yourself Without Being a Dick. And it's really a great title. And again, thejoyjunkie.com. And I just got to meet her before we opened, and she sounds like a really wonderfully open and genuine and interesting woman. So let's just jump right in. Amy Smith, tell us, how can people become joyful and happy?
Oh, wow. Well, we should be able to wrap that up in 30 minutes.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Let's just cut right to the chase.
Well, I think that one of the things that I think is kind of prevailing in our culture and really somewhat of an epidemic is the search for happiness and fulfillment in things outside of yourself. In the mindset of, if these people approve of me or if I am deemed worthy by these outside forces, then that's sort of my free path to be happy and love who I am. And conversely, if people do not accept me, or I don't receive accolades, or if I don't check off all the appropriate boxes, then that must mean that I'm not worthy. And I think sort of that idea is something that people end up having sort of this perpetual chase throughout their life. And it sounds something like, well, as soon as I finish college, then I'll be happy. Well, then as soon as I go to law school, then I'll be happy. Or as soon as I join a reputable firm, that, or pass the bar, or what have you. We just keep kind of changing the new criterion for happiness and for fulfillment. And I'm not at all saying that a quest for accomplishment or having lofty goals or ambition is problematic in any kind of way, unless we collapse all of our value with those things, meaning I can't be valuable or happy or joyful unless I've attained those items. So what I do a lot in my work is kind of shift that ideology of moving from the external to the internal and starting with what we all already have innately. So, gosh, there's so many ways to go about that. But one of the things that I love that you talk about is kind of taming the demon of the mind. Mm-hmm. And that is really quite the basis of a lot of the work that I do, is working through our internal narrative so that what we are telling ourselves kind of on that loop over and over again is one of personal power instead of kind of personal depletion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a rabbi once said, happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have.
Exactly. Yes. I love that. I love that. Yeah. I think that there's another quote, and I cannot tell you for the life of me where I heard it, but it was, gratitude turns what you have into enough. And I think that could be said too of gratitude and appreciation and love for self. And recognizing that there's no self-worth store that you can kind of just cruise by and grab some worthiness, and now all of a sudden I feel like I'm good enough or smart enough or whatever it is, and normal enough, right? And the sooner we realize that we actually have that ability this whole time, and kind of nurturing what that looks like to uncover that.
So if someone goes to thejoyjunkie.com, what will they find?
So one of the major pieces that I tend to talk about with the pursuit of joy kind of being the end result is this idea that we can speak up for ourselves, that we can stand up for who we are, that we can broach really polarizing conversations, whether it's around politics or religion or asking for a divorce or asking your adult children to move out of the house. You can do all of those things with the utmost grace and kindness. So that's really how that idea of you can speak up, you can be articulate and assertive and not have to be malicious and not have to be mean. And I found that that really was a pervasive fallacy that I kept coming up against of people wanting to establish boundaries with in-laws or wanting to say no to shit that really didn't serve them, that they didn't want to participate in. And felt like if I do that, then I must be a horrible person or then I won't be liked. So a lot of what I do is around that kind of finding your voice piece and then what that sounds like to actually use it.
So you find people are trying to please others at their own expense.
Oh, my goodness. It is, yes. I really think it's out of control.
And so what if the person just says, I really don't want to lose this friend, and so I don't want to take the chance of upsetting them, so I'll put their needs before mine.
Right. Well, and so here's my thoughts on that, is I believe that constantly putting everybody else in front of yourself...
Well, not constantly, just now and then.
I think that there's a hierarchy, and I think that there is a way to look at each individual situation and go, you know what, now is my time to be of service to them. And I think what is the most pivotal piece of that is the conscious choice behind it. And I don't think that that is oftentimes happening. There's this idea that everybody else's wants, opinions, and needs are more important than mine. So let me just make everybody else happy.
Was that now? Someone else might say, "Well, what's so great about being happy and joyful? Whatever happened to the concept of serving, and whatever happened to the concept of pursuing a mission, and whatever happened to the concept of doing for others?"
Sure. Well, I would argue that there is great fulfillment in doing that. And I think that a lot of people find a great amount of joy and fulfillment through the acts of service. However, I do think that there's everything in moderation, where you can become so much of service and so much in tune to everybody else that you've completely lost sight of yourself. And I love the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. And she talks about how across all different cultures, all different sexes and ages, when people were on their deathbed, their top regret was, I wish I lived a life true to myself and not the life that others wished of me. So I think that we can look at things kind of in the micro view right now and in our immediate situation with our friends or colleagues and go, my God, they must approve of me. But what will we say on our deathbed? Will we go, oh, I'm so glad I never got to know who I was or never tapped into what fulfilled me? It's doubtful.
Sure. Yeah, no. And so how do you, other than encouraging people to be true to themselves, how do you help them do it?
Well, I think that there's a litany of tools and concepts that I teach and share. But one of the concepts that I think is kind of at the core of my sort of methodology is this idea that you are responsible for your intention, not your reception. And so instead of trying to control how everyone else feels about you, which is impossible and a rat race, and there's no way that we can please absolutely every person, to be really connected and conscientious of your own intention. So I like to say, if your intention was one of malice, if your intention was to be a bitch to somebody, then yes, you should feel bad about that. You should experience guilt and reroute your poor behavior. However, if your intention, let's say, is to come out of the closet and tell your family that you are gay, and your intention is one of self-love, of authenticity, of acceptance, and even if you share that to a multitude of people, you're going to get a varying degree of receptions. Mom and dad may not love that. You might have some friends that are super supportive and love it. Then there might be a whole grouping of people who could give a shit and are just completely indifferent to it. Mm-hmm. So if you were trying to tweak and contort yourself in such a way so that all of the receptivity was one constant, it's impossible. But you can stand in your own integrity and you can stand in your own intention and go, you know what, my intention in sharing this information is to live a life true to myself, and it's not one of intentionally causing pain. And I think understanding that you're responsible for that piece and not the reception, that everybody else's feelings are actually theirs to tend to. That's their responsibility. We can't change that for people, but we can make sure that we show up in a way that we're proud. So it's really kind of switching that barometer of success. So instead of saying, my life will be successful as long as everybody loves me, it's going, my life will be successful as long as I love me. And in turn, it creates this ripple effect where you also encourage others to love who they are, and you become magnetic, and then they get empowered, and it becomes sort of this domino cascading effect. So
I have to admit, I'm a little wary of the idea of loving yourself. I know an awful lot of people who love themselves who really shouldn't. So I kind of like the idea of liking yourself instead of loving yourself. But let me ask you I'll ask you a personal question. I went to a medical school reunion about a month or so ago, and there's a classmate that I didn't get to see, and I felt bad about that. So I sent her an email, and I said, I'm sorry I didn't get to see you. And she didn't reply, and I think she was miffed that I didn't see her. And so I sent her another email, and she still didn't reply. And so being true to myself, to continue your theory, and the issue that I'm being true to myself is I don't give up and I believe in connection. I sent her a third email, and I said, have I offended you in some way by not seeing you, and could you please reply? And she still hasn't replied. Now, should I be true to myself and not give up and send her a fourth email? Or am I being too much of a people pleaser by sending her a fourth email, and should I just give up? So which one? Is it be true to myself and continue to try, or not be a people pleaser and just give up and let her, hold it against me for not finding her when I was there?
Well, the first thing that I would say is I would make sure that you, in fact, it has been received.
Oh, I know it has. I know it has. That's no doubt.
You know it has.
Yeah, I know it has. Yeah.
Okay, because then I would have suggested try an alternate form of communication.
Right. No, I know it has, because other people were in the loop. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I think what I would do, because it sounds as though it's something that's of extreme importance to you, is I probably would advocate sending one more message, but saying that it will be your final message, as to respect her boundaries, and if she's not interested in talking or conversing any further, that you definitely don't want to push anything on her, but that your door is always open. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think that there's a piece of allowing that there's two people involved here, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is an element of responsibility on her behalf. You are not in this relationship by yourself. So there is a piece where she needs to kind of match you. Mm-hmm. And if there is silence, and if there is a unwillingness to connect, then
no, there was, and it was never a deep relationship or anything. So it's not a romantic attachment. It was just a friendship,
sure.
and it's been a long time since we saw each other. But I'm just saying that it's not always clear cut, because I am someone who really does go the extra mile to stay connected to people, and true to myself is to continue to reach out and not give up. But on the other side, I don't want to be, in your terms, a people pleaser and sort of be begging. It's not like I have to. I'm just saying that the issue can be kind of subtle. It's not always obvious which way to go.
Of course. And that is also why I think it is so important in these sorts of situations to ask yourself, how do I need to conduct myself in order to be proud of the person that I am? Mm-hmm. That question usually brings you back to your own moral code or compass instead of worrying about.
But again, this isn't a moral question. See, again, it's not about morality. It's more about psychology, comfort. There's no moral way to go here. There's no morality involved at all. It's about when people like or don't like, and being accepted or not accepted, liking or not liking. So the pleasing or not pleasing. I totally agree with what you're saying, Amy. You don't want to go around subjugating yourself for others, but at the same time, I think you don't want to be completely selfish all the time. Right.
No, I completely agree. And so I would also say that you are operating under your understanding of what is right or wrong, or the proper way to behave and to conduct yourself. And that is going to land very differently for everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's extremely interesting. So, and these are the kinds of topics you take up in your book and on your website.
That's right. Yes. So I also do a weekly podcast as well. And
what is the name of your podcast?
It's called The Joy Junkie Show. The Joy Junkie Show. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, you're a lovely woman and a wise woman, and it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And for our listeners, go to thejoyjunkie.com and get the Stand Up for Yourself Without Being a Dick. I love the title. Amy Smith, thank you so much for joining us on Distraction.
Oh, thank you kindly.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Well, have a good one.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. Well, that's our show for today. A big thank you to Amy Smith for joining me today. You can get a copy of Amy's free e-workbook, Stand Up for Yourself Without Being a Dick, with 9 proven challenges to radically improve your self-confidence and self-love at thejoyjunkie.com. As always, send your questions, comments, and show ideas to connect@distractionpodcast.com. Or leave us a voice message at 844-55-CONNECT. That's 844-55-CONNECT. Please remember to subscribe to Distraction on Apple Podcasts, and please leave us a review. They really do help us. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our producer is the wonderfully reliable and intelligent Sarah Gurton, and our audio engineers on today's episode are the magnificent Greg Session and the personable Scott Person.